Welcome everyone to Dental Nachos TV. We have an amazing show tonight with my friend, Dr. Charles Moser. You're going to meet in a minute. If you are looking to hire an associate dentist to unlock more freedom, free time, and best of all, fewer hygiene checks, Dentist Job Connect can help. Just text HIRE to 215-798-9897. And if you are a successful and stressed out dental practice owner, Super Dentist Boost Camp is for you. To learn more about our amazing Boost Camp for practice owners, text Boost to 215-543-6454. I'm going to welcome my friend, Dr. Charles Moser, to the stage on Dental Nachos TV whenever he is ready to start his video. There he is, Charles. And we've been talking about doing this webinar. People will be streaming in. We have this on my Paul Goodman DMD Facebook Live page, so my team can share that into Dental Nachos. So tell us, Charles, we labeled this Problems, Pain, and People Needs of Large Practice, Multi-Practice Owners. Why are you qualified to discuss this with us? Tell us a little bit about, remember dental school, history of present illness. Give me history of Charles Moser to start us off.
Well, at the age of 13, I decided I wanted to be a dentist because that's what my mother told me to do. So from there on, it was a heat-seeking missile, not a straight line up, but graduated from dental school, San Antonio, great dental school, GPR, associateships.
I'm going to interject, Pros. Tell me,
Sure.
what year did you graduate from dental school?
Really? Really? You want to start that already?
Yeah, I mean, 2002.
You want to poke the bear already?
Be proud of your seasoned age. What year?
Back when we were still pedaling to turn our handpieces, I graduated in 1990.
1990. So you were 12 years ahead of me. And you mentioned something. You did a general practice residency.
I did.
And we're going to dig into our topic, but I love asking people this. Why did you do it? Would you recommend dentists do that? And what'd you get out of it?
So I went to when I graduated from UT Health Science Center, San Antonio, it was voted the #1 dental school in the country. Now I only say that as a little bit of context to, I feel like I really got a good education in dental school. I did not go to a dog, and even still, even after that amazing education, I personally was extremely nervous about the idea of going out and charging real money for people, to do what I really didn't feel qualified to do. So I did an amazing residency in Hartford, Connecticut at St. Francis Hospital. And, just the value of giving 200 injections over the course of a year. I mean, just that alone would have made it worthwhile. But, going to the operating room, doing hundreds of extractions, a lot of restorative dentistry, learning a lot more just about the overall patient in general, because it was a hospital-based residency. We did rotations through internal medicine and anesthesia. And so, we learned a lot about the human being and the connection, the systemic connection between oral health and the systemic health. So what do I suggest it? I can't believe it's not mandatory yet.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe that's just because there's just not enough programs.
We're on the same page with that, Charles. I will share my experience. I had an amazing father who he had a practice set up for me. He had a partner. And he said, don't go right from dental school and come practice with me. You've got your whole life to do that. He did the Air Force. And he said, I like the Air Force, but I didn't have anyone to help me. So I had to figure it out on my own. So he said he did a lot of extractions until his whole entire 41-year career, until he passed away. He would still do extractions. But he said, these GPRs and AGDs, that sounds awesome. You have people teaching you. You have people showing up to hold your hand. So I got to place implants. So I just want to, for the record, we are on the same page. And I also want to share, doing a GPR AGD doesn't mean you didn't go to a good dental school. It doesn't mean you didn't get good experience. It's that amazing transition from dental school into the real world. So I appreciate you sharing that with me.
Yeah, and one little caveat to that too is if you're going to do an additional training program, and you're considering doing it at the same place where you went to dental school, I would strongly suggest reconsidering that. Go someplace where you're not known, where you're a doctor and not just a fifth-year dental student type of thing, just to kind of add a little bit of Tabasco, a little bit of
I like it.
Salsa to that.
You're 1993, you've graduated from your residency. What happens next?
Yeah, I came back to Houston, which is home. I was married and I became an associate with a family friend. His dad was an amazing panky dentist, probably the best set of hands I've ever seen. And then at the same, I worked part-time there, and then I worked part-time at I guess what now we would look back and say was a DSO. It was only 3 practices, but all of them were quite large. And so it was very fast moving, a lot of patients coming through. So I kept my foot in private practice to where I was learning from a panky dentist, really super high quality case acceptance, diagnosis and treatment planning. And then, a couple of days a week, I got to just go fast. So it was a great combination.
I think that's like, basically like you're a chef training in 2 different types of restaurants. And I think that really gives you a lot of context. So what's interesting is, as someone who does this daily, that road is not as prevalent anymore for a variety of reasons. Dental school debt, culture of practices. So I think that, when I graduated, many of my friends did that, work 2 days a week in a PPO practice, work 2 days a week free for service. So now you're an associate. How many years did you do that for?
I did that for a couple of years until in 94, I bought my first practice in smack dab in the middle of downtown Houston on
So
the
in
10th
1994,
floor.
you buy a practice.
Yep.
What did you learn as an associate that helped you as a practice owner once you had one? You go, man, my old boss, I thought he was crazy for saying XYZ, but that turned out well, or I'm glad I don't do it that way. I share with people, a couple of years as an associate teaches what you want to do and also what you don't want to do.
Yeah, I
Tell
think
us
more
about your
importantly,
story.
what you don't want to do. I was an associate in a couple different places. And so one thing, I got no business training from any of my mentors, zero. So I was still pretty much in the dark about what it was like to financially run a business. I learned how not to treat people by one of my
Yeah.
mentors, which was again is a great lesson. I learned, back in the day, I learned that, and maybe even still so, we didn't play well in the sandbox together, associate and owner, because of just again that huge difference. Be like me taking on an associate right now who's so much smarter, has learned so many different things that I don't know, and they're going to come in and want to do things differently. And I'm like, no, this is an all gold practice. It's all we
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
is gold crowns and acrylic dentures, and flippers. So I don't know what all this hubbub is about implants and everything, but that's not what we do here.
I
So
like that. I came up with a phrase at, the meeting that you might have heard me say it, RTC-itis for dentists, resistance to change itis.
yeah, right.
And, it doesn't mean go running headlong head first into the newest thing without any sort of responsible decision making. But it also doesn't say, hey, I don't know if anybody's watching the NBA playoffs, but the game of basketball is much different than it was in the
Yeah, right,
1990s
right.
and the
Yeah,
game of dentistry. So now you're a practice owner in 1994.
yeah.
Get it. Keep going through your story.
Yeah, so things were going well. I had the opportunity to buy a practice that was close to my house in a very affluent area that I'd always really loved. It was a super small practice, only 3 chairs, 800 square feet, no private office or anything like that, but it was in a great part of town. And so I bought that practice and, did the associate game for a while. I wasn't very successful at that point in time. So instead of associates, I just alternated 3 days in one place and 2 days in the other place. I worked 5 days a week. Um, but to the public, it looked like we were open 5 days a week in both places because of the way we scheduled it. I rotated my staff with me, phones on answering services and things like that. And that was a really good combination. Things were good. Overhead in both places was low. I'm not an early adopter. I'm kind of a belt. Well, I already told you I do gold onlays, so that'll
Yeah.
tell you. Um, I like to wait and see how things go. So I kept things pretty lean and had great team members that stayed with me for years and years and years. And then we had the opportunity to buy. I had a consultant friend of mine that we thought we would try something together. So we bought a third practice together and tried to do a little bit of a different model. It wasn't super successful financially. It was very successful from a learning standpoint. That was
Yeah.
kind of my MBA right there. Still was less than what people are paying now for an MBA.
Yeah.
But after a couple of years of that, we were like, this is not really. It was just a bad idea, frankly. It's just a bad idea. And so we sold that practice, and I had my other two. And then sadly, you know the story, life took a drastic turn when I dropped a 16-foot flatbed trailer hitch on my operating hand. And that was the beginning of the end of private practice.
So what we do at Dental Nachos, thanks for sharing authentically,
Sure.
Charles, is we help people learn to avoid mistakes, learn to pay attention before they need to, and the losing the ability to practice dentistry. Who crossed your path to say, "Hey, Charles Moser, you better get disability insurance"? Who was that person?
Yeah, it was my insurance agent, who was the son of my dad's insurance agent, so it was a family to family type of thing. It wasn't even, Paul, I don't ever remember it even being an option. I don't remember
Yeah.
somebody coming to me and saying, "Hey, I want to talk to you about possibly buying disability insurance." It was just like, it was like malpractice. I mean, it was just something that I was going to have. So, I bought it straight out of dental school. I mean, it was just that simple. It wasn't
So I want
anything.
my team to screenshot me and you and go on Instagram and say, "Do you have disability insurance?" and put an arrow, because this dentist, you were 5 years into your career when this happened?
16.
16 years. Oh,
Yeah.
so what year was this? What year was this?
Well, 2006. Yeah.
So in 2006, you had a hand injury.
Yeah.
Life happens when you're making other treatment plans.
Yeah.
You had disability insurance. How did that come into catching you financially as in a safety net?
Saved my life. I mean, that's not even short. That there's nothing about that. Now, yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting story, and it's kind of a 20-minute story. So if anybody wants to know about it, they can reach out to me, and I'll tell you how I got paid. I mean, it wasn't easy. I did
Yeah.
file a claim, and I filed the claim 4 years after the injury, and it was not easy, but it was very lucrative, very lucrative. So, hey, if you're a person that can take high risk, and you think that you can go do something else after, if you were to lose your ability to practice dentistry, whatever, it's fine.
What
But
I'll share, and I mean, my whole thing here is
it's the best investment I've ever made my entire life, hands
yeah.
down, bar none. I own
And
Tesla. I own cryptocurrency. I mean, hands down, not even
so you're
close.
saying to every dentist who's a D4, get disability insurance now. To every dentist who's been dragging their feet, get it now, because life happens when you're making other treatment plans, and you could be in a world of financial catastrophe, pain, and problems without it.
I mean, you have car insurance, you have you have home insurance, you have all these insurances. To not have insurance on your hands, which is the only way right
Yeah.
now how to make money, seems a bit risky, irresponsible,
Well, my
maybe.
team go into Instagram, put our text disability code for our sponsor.
Yeah, do
So
it.
now, one other thing I'll add before we jump into the thing is that sometimes you lost the ability to, do fine dentistry.
Correct.
But we're going to learn about your career. You didn't lose the ability to speak. You didn't lose the ability to make decisions. But some people do, because there's a dentist in our group right now who's on the brink of being homeless because she has a medical condition that really doesn't allow her to work more than 10 hours in a week. So that's why it's key. So I'm glad you've scared us straight. So now you can't practice dentistry. You got your disability insurance, but you want to do something. Tell us what your next something is.
Yeah, I mean, I got a basket of lemons and started squeezing them, and made some lemonade, and went to work for some friends of mine that were building a DSO, a Medicaid DSO here in Houston, in Texas, and they were very successful, and needed additional leadership, and they knew the quality of dentistry that I was doing and how seriously I took it, and so they thought that I would be a good fit to come in and mentor and be a dental director, basically. So I took on 16 locations with that, what now would be called a DSO. Back then, we didn't put those three letters together. And I had about 45 dentists working underneath me at any given time, and about 300 staff members, 16 locations. Each location was doing, $1 million plus. So I was in charge of a $20 million
So now
farm.
so I just went down to a group that spoke highly of you, and you've helped people coach associates. So let's just drill down, pun intended, into this, which sets us up for a lot of the pain points that people have submitted.
Sure.
Your name's Dr. Charles Moser. You're a dental director in what is kind of a precursor to a DSO, a large group practice. All of this is large group practice.
Right.
You wake up every day and you're in charge of 45 dentists.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that. What does that mean? Did they ask you about crown preps? Did they say this patient's driving me nuts? Did they say, I don't know how Medicaid works? All the above. You had a
All the
full-time job. What were you doing with managing these
Yeah,
associates?
all the above. So my routine essentially was to plan to be, I had 60% of the offices were in Houston and 40% were in San Antonio. I live in Houston. So my plan of action was to be in an office in the morning and to be in an office in the afternoon. At lunchtime, I would grab lunch and head to another office. So the plan was and then once the office managers got to know me, they would schedule me. Basically, they'd say, Dr. Moser, we've got Dr. Goodman that's doing a root canal on tooth number 19 today. Can you find your way here at 3 o'clock? I'd be like, sure. So if that wasn't the office that I was going to in the afternoon, it became the office that I was going to in the afternoon. Sometimes Dr. Goodman would call me and say, I'm doing a root canal on tooth number 19 at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Can you be here? Of course, I
And
would.
now we go back to kind of what you were talking about. You just shared the value of doing 200 injections, doing your GPR, AGD. Dentistry is constant learning. But if you could help our audience, whether they're about to hire their first associate, whether they're about to have their first associate job, what did you notice was kind of the missing link from dental school into the real world? Because you only had your experience or a handful, but now you got 45 associates with dental 911 calls. If you said to somebody right now, go back and learn this, pay attention to this, this is what you need to do because this will hold you up, slow you up, what would be some of your wisdom?
So get rid of this idea that you have to know everything. Just kind of let go of that, because that gets in the way of your ability to accept new information. So conceptually, internally in your own mind, if you're new at this, I have just given you the grace to say to someone, hey, man, I kind of don't really know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
I mean, none of us did. Okay. So you're not supposed to either. So mentally give yourself the grace to accept the fact that there's a lot of stuff that you don't know out there. The other
So
thing I
basically
would
what you're
say
saying
is,
is I want to say the ability to receive feedback and apply it is important.
yeah, because if you put that blockade up, if you've got a roadblock where you can't accept feedback as something that is meant to help you because someone that's giving it to you loves you and cares about you and your profession and the patient you're working on, then getting better is going to take a really painful event, right?
Yes.
Something's got to happen and you're going to be like, oh, wow. Yeah, I need to get better. The other high level thing I would say to people is look at everybody out there as a mentor, whether they're taking out the trash or whether they actually are your mentor or it's a patient. Everybody has the ability to learn something from everybody else. And so again, it's
I
that
love that. It's a great
open-mindedness
quote.
is that just that ability to let things go. You don't know everything. You never will. Accept the fact that feedback is the only way we improve. And everybody out there, if you have an open mind, could be someone that you learn something from.
I,
So
I
that's
absolutely love that. I'll kind of, we'll get in this, start some of the topics. So I want to go back to your story, but I was just at the team on here will laugh. So I have a 9-year-old and, when my version in my life of being preppy was someone would wear Ralph Lauren or Lacoste or the alligators, that was preppy, right? But now preppy for my 9-year-old is, a very different version, it's Lululemon and different things. So it's a different language. And when we talk about these dentists coming out, they're talking to you, Charles, about clinical help, right? I need help with this root canal.
Right.
But what if they turn to their assistant, their front desk team member? We get none of those skills. A, how important is it to be able to work with your team? And B, if some dentist was open-minded and says, I will do whatever you say, Charles Moser. I'll read a book. I'll listen to a podcast. I'm going to go into the real world and I've never worked with a dental assistant, never worked with a front desk. Give them some pointers on that.
So try a lot of things. I heard this great thing, like in your 20s, you want to try a lot of things. In your 30s, you want to start to hone in on the things that you really love. Because, and I say it that way because when you can make what you love, what you're an expert at is the intersection of greatness. There are a lot of people that are great at things, but they don't really love them. And there are a lot of people that love things that they're not really great at. And those lines, they come close, but they don't intersect. But in your 30s, find out what it is that you really love and decide to be an expert at it. And in your 40s, you go out there and you build something fantastic. And in your 50s, you capitalize on it. You get the payoff. So
Absolutely love that.
I think if
Awesome.
you look at it from a decade's point of view, again, it kind of don't be in such a rush to decide that you have to do something. Oh, I have to learn implants, or I have to learn ortho, or I have to learn all on X, or I have to learn cosmetics. Do a lot of things your first 5 years out and
And
see
then you
what you
can,
like and see what you're good at.
and some focus on what makes sense for two reasons, I think, Charles. One, I'm a dentist too, your sanity, right? You have to just, if you try to do everything every day, you get kind of okayish at a bunch of things and it's not fulfilling. And two, it's not financially possible to do a bunch of procedures half well because nobody wants that. So I think you
Right.
really, really is. Now, I want to get into some of these pain points, but keep us with your story. You did this DSO, maybe now, what is it, 2012, 2014?
So it's, let's say 2009. And then once I joined, we sold to a private equity group for a very large sum of money, huge money that I didn't think existed. Again, in 2009, that was kind of unheard of that was done. We sold to a private equity group, built out an entire C-suite, and it was amazing. So, you know, I can't change people's minds if you already have a bias on how you feel about private equity and healthcare and all that kind of thing. All I can tell you is some of it works and some of it doesn't, and there's good and bad on both sides. I had an amazingly, phenomenally great experience with private equity. We pushed on each other enough to where we created a diamond. They stayed out of the clinical aspect of what we did. We stayed out of telling them what number two pencils to buy,
Yeah.
and we were amazingly successful.
I love
And
what you shared there. I mean, the many dentists will say to me, Charles, I never want to sell to a DSO. I don't like DSOs. I'm never going to sell to a DSO. And then I just go, I have a follow-up question. What's a DSO? They go, I have no idea. Right.
right,
So,
exactly.
so it's
Define it.
somewhat, I'll try to come with a diplomatic term. It's not emotionally stable to be afraid of something you don't know what it is. Just like I have my child try food she hasn't tried. So if someone was saying here, Charles Moser, you lost me. DSOs are evil. They're ruining everything. You just shared that your experience with a DSO was favorable. Most dentists are concerned about the clinical pressure. How come yours did not put any clinical pressure to do scaling and root planing on 20-year-olds and crowns on teeth that had occlusal composites?
Because the leadership, the clinical leadership wouldn't let them.
I
I
like
mean,
that.
and again, we got into some knockdown dragouts, which was, when looking back on it, it was kind of fun and amusing, when you think about it. Look, at the end of the day, no CEO in the world can mandate to you, can make you write something that you don't want to write, can make you
Yeah.
click on something that you don't want to click on. you know so the diagnosis and treatment planning is still in the hands of the clinician. Can they exert certain forces? Sure, I guess they can. But there's right now, if you're an associate and you don't like where you are, then you need to get in touch with Dentist Job Connect, because there's lots of great associate positions out there. The
I
dentists are in the driver's seat right now. So
yeah, I think that's important for you to reinforce. It's complex, and I will share, it was easier to push me around 2 years out of dental school than 20 years. So if someone said to me 2 years out of dental school who was in charge of my paycheck, I need you to do X, Y, Z, I tell my team, Charles, is something unethical, immoral, illegal, or unsafe? Don't do it, right?
exactly.
But if someone
Right.
says, I want you to try wearing a different color pair of scrubs, try it, right? See what happens. And I think that's what we need to reinforce the dentists, that they're in the driver's seat. They have more power than they think. Now, with your story, you've done this DSO, you've sold to private equity. Then are you now just retired, relaxing on a beach, or you can't do that? You have to do something.
No, I had to do something, and I still have to do something because I get bored really, really easily. So, and I do not want golf to ever be a chore.
Yeah.
So I want to play enough golf and be with my family, but I love to create. I think I love to help people. It's the hardest job in the entire world. There is nothing harder than being a dentist. And so my mission is to help people just navigate their way through this extremely difficult, challenging business and do it for a long period of time and take care of the people in their areas to the highest degree. So what I used to tell my associates they'd say, well, can I make a lot of money here? I say, yeah, you can make a lot of money here. I mean, it's Medicaid dentistry, but our associates made a lot of money. And I said, I want you to make as much money as you can possibly make with your own two hands, morally and ethically. That's called capitalism, morally and ethically. We provided them with plenty of patients with plenty of need. And if they could learn how to be efficient and effective with their patient care, they had no problems making money.
I love that, Charles. And then since that time, you've done a variety of consulting things. Our team is going to share your website in the comments. What is your website?
www.bluehorsepersonaldevelopment.com or bluehorsepd.com. Both of them will get you there.
Awesome. And now, and you'll talk to people and do consults if they want to reach out to you and see.
Yeah, I'll talk to you. I'll give away way too much.
All right, good. Well, you've helped many people in our communities as a sponsor, as a supporter. Now, you are known for helping people who own large practices or more than one practice, because tell me your line. They break in 3s or 9s. What was that line?
Yeah, things tend to break at 3 and 10, right? If you've got 3 kids, you know what I'm talking about. 2 kids was like, hey, this isn't too bad. But then you had a third one is like, holy moly, things went crazy. At $30,000 of production, things tend to break a little bit. At $100,000 of production, things tend to break a little bit. Between 3 and 10 is what we call the dark tunnel. 3 and 7 practices, somewhere around 12 to 15 million in revenue. It's really a dark tunnel because you're too big to be small and too small to be big. You're typically the dentist, the major provider. The biggest problem that I get with my clients is they call me and they tell me, I have 4 locations, 3 associates, but I still generate 60% of the revenue. That's a problem. I mean, if you want to get out of the chair, that's a challenge.
Now but why is that a problem? Someone's saying, I got 4 locations, we do $8 million, but I am the top producer. That sounds like they're just the top point scorer, like LeBron James or Embiid. I'm not too happy with them, so maybe a bad example. But why is that a problem? They're just the top point scorer. That doesn't seem like a problem to me.
Well, it tends to be a problem depending on what your vision is, right? I mean, if Steph Curry's vision is I'd like to sit on the bench more, then without his scoring, their team loses, right?
Yes.
So if your vision is,
if
your vision is, well, I want to come out of the chair, I want to run an organization, I just want to be the CEO. And I was like, that's great, we can do that. But how much of a financial hit can you take? So you're doing $1.5 million in collections right now. You're making $500,000 a year. How much can you drop? If you can drop down to $200,000 a year in revenue, sweet. We can take you out of the chair. We can teach you how to be a CEO, bring on more associates.
And the also part to that, you're sharing such great value, but I just want to add is that just so this audience, because I know that we're kind of doing the ABCs of this multi-practice owner world. If you do 1.5 million, whether you own the organization, whether it's a DSO, somebody else has to do that 1.5 million. And if you are the Steph Curry, they need another Steph Curry or a few people to act like Steph Curry.
Right.
That in and of itself is a complicated replacement, not an impossible, but a complicated one.
Yeah. So if people always want to do this math, I'll give you the back of the napkin math really, really quickly. If you're an owner and you have a mature group practice of 3 to 5 practices, right? I mean, these are not brand new de novos, right? You've owned them for a couple of years. You've got your revenue legs underneath you, your P&L underneath you. Every time you bring on an associate, you can count on making between 8 and 10% of their collections as the owner. That's what funnels down into your pocket. So if you're trying to replace $100,000 of revenue for yourself, you need an associate that does $1 million.
Yeah. Because I love what you're sharing. This is valuable to our audience. I want to catch everyone up with Dental Nachos TV with Dr. Charles Moser, friend, sponsor, large practice consultant and coach. The other part I'll share is, because this is where I think people don't get it. If you're a solo dentist doing 1.5 million, making making $600,000 a year.
Yeah.
How big of a group in millions do you need to own as the non-dentist operator? To make $600,000 a year, I'm going to say you need to own $4 to $5 million in dental practices.
Well, I'll say 6 million since it throws off about 10%.
Yeah, 6 million. So that's what people should think about, because I want to share, and I say this in the friendliest and most authentic way. It's easier to make $600,000 doing $1.5 million a year than $600,000 managing a $6 million dental group, because it's complicated to get all of those dentists on the same page from my experience. You can disagree,
Well, I wouldn't
agree-ish.
disagree. I would only say to you again, if you find what you love and find what you're good at and where that intersects, I mean, the last 7 years, I've played in the sandbox with a bunch of really high IQ business entrepreneurs. They happen to be dentists. You know, before that, 7 years ago, I didn't know that person existed. So,
Gotcha.
there are a lot of really smart people out there that want to be entrepreneurs. They really don't want to be dentists. That's fine. I understand it. And maybe, you have the wherewithal to go out there and create that $6 million, $7 million machine. It's just a different business. You're
Also,
you're not low stress. You're still plenty of stress.
Yes, you and I love sports. I've said this numerous times because I have friends in business and real estate and different worlds. There's something kind of cool about dentistry that 3 years out of dental school, you can own a business and make $400,000 to $500,000 a year. There's also something kind of poignant, I won't use sad, Charles, that your third year and your 30th year don't look much different. And
oh, well, right. Now, I mean, that is
and that's something you don't see. You don't see Steph Curry play for 30 years. You don't see Dak Prescott play for 30 years. They go on to be coaches. They go on to be analysts.
I'm still waiting for Dak to play 1 year.
Yeah, I know. He's I won't bring up a sore point at this time. So we asked our audience and kind of tell us, they've given us feedback through surveys.
All right.
And tell them your thoughts. Your thoughts could be like, totally happened to me. I want to tell you how to make it better. It's hard to make this better. Keeping associates happy and wanting them to stay. Whether you own 3 practices with 3 associates who make sure make your practices go, or 30 locations with 100, how would you tell them to keep associates happy and retain them?
So retention of any employee, associates included, starts at the interview process. You need to really understand interviewing, hiring, onboarding, and training. So that is the gateway. That's like trying to do a crown without good anesthesia, or trying to do root canal without good anesthesia. That's going to be a tough appointment. Trying to keep an associate without really knowing how to interview, how to onboard and train, and then be a business person, care about people. Basically, if you don't love people, then you're going to struggle. But trying to retain people without taking those steps first, again, is like trying to do endo with bad anesthesia. It's going to be painful.
I love that. I'll add this too, is I think one of my favorite speaking pieces is How to Speak by Patrick Winston. It has 17 million YouTube views. He was teaching MIT students how to present themselves for a job. He passed away a few years ago. Amazing talk. He said, build a fence around your idea. Tell people what your idea is not. So when people apply to me, Charles, here's how I keep my associates happy. At this job, you will not place implants as an associate. At this job, you will not do root canals. At this job, you will not do major full mouth rehabilitations. What you will do is work as part of a team with specialists. We are an out-of-network office. You work with 2 brothers who own practices, and one of them, my brother, will teach you systems and how to run things and how to interact with team, and you'll do restorative dentistry. You'll restore implants, but the number of procedures you do will fit into this box here. Is that box okay with you? And my associates are happy and they do those things, but this job isn't for everyone. So I think a lot of times dentists do not really dial in, or anyone, what the position is. So I like what you've said there.
Yeah, so you created clarity, right, for people. They know exactly what they're going to get, what they're buying. And that is very important. There's, look, I understand it, but it doesn't make it right. There's a lot of owners out there that make decisions based out of fear. Well, I gotta have this person. I need this butt in, I need a butt in that seat. I can't tell my people what to do or they're going to quit. I mean, if that's really the people that you have working for you, you got bigger problems, and so you got to draw a line in the sand every once in a while and say, this is what we are, this is what we are not. You do not get to walk up to the front desk and say, hey, I'm not working tomorrow, reschedule my patients.
Yeah.
It's just unacceptable. So
I love your answer. Now, this one here it's more than just dental assistants. Let's take finding enough dental assistants, which could be assistants, front desk team members. So people say, I've seen dentists, Charles, they're what I'll call them is wild entrepreneurs. They'll say,
Okay.
Paul, I bought a practice, it did 600 grand and all this opportunity to grow it. And, I'm signing the APA tomorrow. And I go, cool, who's going to work there? They go, I haven't figured that out yet, right? So tell our audience, put the dentist aside. All the people that make the dentist go. How do you create a culture where they want to stay? How would you find them? Because dental assistants are not easy to find. You know what's happening with hygienists, front desk team members. So give us some of your outside the operatory guidance there.
Yeah, okay. So again, first accept the fact that, yeah, there's pain involved in this. Like I said, even if you're not sitting at the chair and doing dentistry, being an entrepreneur is stressful as well. What was the question?
No, well, what I'm sharing is that dentists get dentisting. They get that they're going to do clinical work, but there's all these people that they have to manage to get them to do their clinical work. Assistants, front desk team members, simply from finding enough of them and to getting them on the same page with you. I'm sure this has been a big part of your coaching.
Yeah.
The team. Tell us more about that.
All right. So first of all, the plug for any coach or consultant is, again, you were not trained how to do this in dental school.
Right.
You are not expected to know all of this. So really, you should look for some help. I mean, and there's lots of free help out there too, to get you going. So you really should look for some help. But here is the quick guide to how to build culture. Okay. So by definition, my definition of culture, just so people will have this context, my definition of culture is what a customer sees and feels when they walk into the door of an establishment. Fair enough? You walk into Starbucks, you see and feel it right there. You walk into McDonald's, you see and feel it right there. You walk into a Tesla store, you see and feel it. A Mac store, you see and feel it. Okay? That culture is intentionally generated by core values. So once you define what your core values are, and again, you need help with this because teamwork is not a core value. Teamwork is a word that has at least a dozen interpretations to it. So your job as a leader is to, again, drill down, no pun intended, to make these core values come alive. So instead of teamwork, the core value is we display teamwork in and above what you think teamwork is to our team. Okay. So it wasn't the greatest one, but now how you build culture is everybody has to identify how they are going to demonstrate that core value on a daily basis in the office. So in other words, before I leave, it's our culture that I say, Dr. Goodman, I'm on my way out. You got a hygiene check. Do you want me to take that for you? Or
I wanted to interject, and I tell associates this, and one of my favorite associates is watching right now. He knows who he is, associates to be. It's the small things that matter, whether it's in with your spouse or your kids. And if I will tell you, I hope people listen to this. I hope my team makes it into some content. If you're an associate dentist and you are finished for the day, just say to the owner dentist and or office manager, if they're the leader, I'm about to leave. Is there anything I could help you with before I go?
Right.
I mean, it is gold. And you know what? Sometimes my brother says, oh yeah, hey, Dr. A, we never got that lab case back. Didn't you want to look at it with me? Oh, hey, Dr. M, you didn't check your sheet and you just committed accidental fraud because you billed out for 3 crowns. You only did 2. So if you just stop, it's so gold. Audit your day sheets, make sure they're right. And just say to the office manager and owner, hey, I'm going to go for the day. Is there anything? And most days, you know what they're going to say, Charles? No, thanks. Go right ahead. Right.
I mean, 90% of the time, right? So you look like a hero 90% of the time, and 10% of the time, they might be helping you not make a big mistake.
On both ends, right? Because sometimes it's around them. So I love that. Now, this is what key. We'll go over 2 more quick ones. But listen, if you could solve a lot of things in life, like finding centric relation, which I don't know if it even exists, Charles, right? But Many people said when we gave them the survey, they bring too much home work with them, bring too much work home, and it affects their family. And I feel this too, as a
Yeah.
dental practice owner and an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So we won't solve it in 8 minutes, but just talk about this pain and how you've helped your clients make it better.
Okay, so I have a client going through that right now. Step number one is keep a diary for a week of everything that you do. Yes,
Okay.
I just added more work to you. I get it. But with technology now, you can dictate it into your phone. From 7 to 7:30, I was still at the office having a beer while I was looking at a lab case, type of thing. Whatever it is. But keep a diary for a week of everything that you're doing. Okay. Two things will happen. One, you're going to find you waste a lot of time. Okay. I mean, you're just bullshitting a lot of times when you should be getting the things done so you can go home. Maybe some people don't want to go home so much. I'm not so sure. But second thing that it will do is, again, if you're working with a coach or a consultant, it's easier. But even still, you'll look at that list and then ask yourself, what are the things on this list that I really don't have to do? Who can I empower in my office to do some of these other things? Because if you empower, you talk about retention, empowering your team is a retention tool. If you give people responsibilities with processes, not with tasks, but with processes, they will want to do more for you. So you empower people to do some of these things that really you should. First of all, you're probably not even the best person to do them you don't even know how to do them, but you live in this hero
That's my
culture.
favorite. The dentist who demands to do something they're not good at.
Yeah, you live in this hero culture.
And
right?
I have to say, this is such value because even my two favorite M's are watching this with me. And one of them particularly, it took some time to get them to give up some of the things that they did, not in a way that was arrogant, but just in a way it's like, well, if I don't do it, I don't know if it's going to get done. But what you need is the P word. You need patience with people. You need them to say, okay, you did it 50% the way it needs to be done. Let's get it to 70. Let's get it to 90. But most dentists, Charles, they let you shoot a free throw once, you miss it. Well, you're not shooting free throws again ever for us.
Right.
Not with me. I stand in there. This is how you hold the ball. You're going to get it. So I think that that's a key part. And I think in the context of what we live tonight, learning how to delegate the things you don't need to do. And my business coach said to me when I was starting this whole thing, you guys need to help Paul be Paul, and anything Paul doesn't need to do, we need to help find a way for other people to do it. And it was one of the most transformative things I could do. Now, we're going to close on a few things. I want to talk about your consulting in a second, but a reliable resource for hiring associate dentists. I've created Dentist Job Connect. There's Indeed. But what I'll share, Charles, and it's a tale as old as time, you needed associates back in 2008, right? I'm sure one of yours left. There was no Facebook. There was no Dental Nachos. One I say is to go to in-person CA in the area and sit next to the dentist that you don't know. Go to study clubs. Two, I say, is to look for associates before you need them. Be proactive instead of reactive.
We call it always be fishing. Yeah.
I like that. Yes. So if someone's saying, hey, Charles, I got 8 associates. I might be able to buy a new practice, but I've just been burned so many times in these associates, and I don't know if I should grow. Talk to them about hiring associate dentists.
Yeah, I have a short, white page of, I think, 15 different places to look for associates. And again, if anybody wants that, just reach out to me. And
I'll tell anyone who's listened this far, because I'm sure you've gotten a lot from Charles and you've got people listening to these on demand. Just reach out to dentalnachos.com to get any info. You also can text Moser, Moser to 215-543-6454. We'll get that to our people, but tell us a little bit about the associate finding.
Yeah, all the traditional places. What's really interesting is talk to your patients, because you'd be surprised how many of your patients have a nephew or a niece or a cousin or somebody that is graduating, already graduated, whatever. I mean, look, you never know where that next patient or the next associate is coming from. So ask everybody. Be careful of your suppliers and your reps, but they can be helpful to you, but you got to be careful. They're in a predicament. They don't want to be accused of stealing associate or something like that. But if you just let them know, hey, we're always fishing. We're always.
I want to share on Saturday night, my own wife got us this dinner with a group at some winery, and we just got the babysitter today. and associates are babysitters. Like we found someone, we went through our list.
Yeah.
We went to number, it was actually one of the M's friends here who she knows. One of the M's on here, Morgan, was our babysitter before she worked for Job Connect. Then she left us and moved across the country. So we were desperate for a new babysitter. So these associates, I call them the aunts and uncles of your practice, the babysitters of your office. And that's not an insult, because you want to know why? My children are the most important thing to me, Charles. So taking care of them is very important. So these associates taking care, but I will tell dentists and someone who does this all the time, we tell our patients to be proactive and get their teeth cleaned. We tell our patients to be proactive and do a crown before it breaks. Yet I had people calling me the week before their associate's going to leave saying, Paul, I need an associate. So I kind of want to leave with be proactive. Well, in the last few minutes, Charles, this is important to me. People call you with these pains and say, scaling, growing, team, culture, work home. How do you work? You do a call with them. Is your coaching monthly? We're going to share how people can reach out to you, but I really want to deliver to this audience how they can work with someone like you to relieve this pain.
Yeah, there's basically two main ways to interact with me. One is just an owner-coach type of relationship. I meet with people once a week for an hour at a time. They'll buy a package of 4 coaching sessions, at a time. And it really becomes one of those things where you bring a problem or you bring a topic, and there might be a little teaching about it. I might send you a podcast about it. And I take really good notes of my interactions with my clients, and you always get a recap. So you'll get homework and the recap of what we talked about. And then you come back next week, we start with good news, and then we talk about how the homework went. Did you do it? Did you not do it? Once a week, 4 times a month type of thing, just a one-on-one coaching. Then I have people that come to me and say, I really need more of a systemic type of relationship. So I work with the owner in that environment that I just talked about once a week. I'll sit on the leadership team meeting once a week. And I'll typically work with the operations director person, like that right-hand person, once a week as well. So now there's 3 hours a week of interaction. Happy to come to people's offices. I mean, I love to travel. I love to go to offices, but it is just what I do. It's not totally necessary. So I'm not that person that's going to come in and sit next to your office manager and show them how to use Open Dental. That's not me. That's not me at all. I can show you where to find plenty of videos on how to learn Open Dental, but I'm not going to be the one that's going to sit there next to them. I have plenty of systems, plenty of operational expertise, but I believe, and by the way, I believe that my interaction with people should be 6 to 8 months at the most. I believe that I'm teaching you to fish, not selling you a fish. Okay.
I love that. I also want to share, and I appreciate you sharing that. Tell us one more time your website and how people can reach out to you.
Yeah, www.bluehorsepersonaldevelopment.com or bluehorsepd.com. I'm also looking for 2 offices to take me up on an offer to allow me to work for you for free. And if I can raise your production in 60 days, 20%, then I want a piece of that. So awesome. You do not have to pay me if you do not raise your production by 20%. Production, I
like that offer. And I also want to share when you go and sit next to the office manager or director of operations virtually, right? Or you're on these team meetings. One of the reasons that's valuable is sometimes the owner operator knows what they're doing, is able to lead the team, but the way they present it to their right-hand person, it doesn't come off right, and they don't want to listen. Or in the other world, they don't know what they're doing. But the end result is when you are too close to the right-hand person, they just need someone else, right? The relationship with your right-hand person, I have multiple ones. It's great when someone comes in who's not in your daily life and just shares their wisdom. And I believe that, we use a dental term. Do you bond the owner and the operations director together in a way that they wouldn't be able to do without you?
Yeah, and I'll take it one step further, which I learned, painfully, is me trying to interact with your office managers and your dental assistants and your hygienists. It takes it to try to build a relationship to where those people will trust me and do what I ask them to do. Takes too long. It's just too tedious, and it's too unpredictable. So I would rather coach the operations person who already has the relationship with these people and say, hey, for your hygiene department, let's try this, but it's your idea, not mine type of thing.
Yes.
And they can go in and say, you know what, we're going to try block scheduling. And here's the way we do that. And they get a lot better result if it comes from them rather than our coach, Dr. Moser, says we're going to do block scheduling, because then everybody goes, oh, the hell we are,
Yeah,
right?
yes, I love
I'll
that.
sabotage this real easily.
Yeah.
So,
well, you shared amazing value, Charles. I
Yeah.
want to share. People can reach out to dentistjobconnect.com to get connected with you. Really enjoyed this 15 minutes. We shared a lot of value. I'll get this recorded, everyone listening. I'm going to take us off Facebook Live, but I truly appreciate your Nacho-tastic support and sharing this with our audience, Charles.
It is my pleasure, my friend.